Hi everyone, and welcome back to Marketing Made Easy by Jottful. I'm your host, Dawn Verbrigge. On today's episode, we have Lindsay Pinchuk. With $500 and a baby in her belly, she left her high-powered job to found her first company, Bump Club and Beyond. In today's episode, she's going to take us back to the beginning and talk about what it was like in the early days and how she really gained initial traction and began to scale her company. Really exciting episode. Glad to have you here. Enjoy.
My business is just me, so I need a marketing plan that I actually have time to do.
I never studied marketing, but I know I have to do it. Sometimes I just need help knowing where to begin.
I never know if the money I spend on marketing is really paying off.
Welcome to Jottful's Marketing Made Easy. I'm Dawn Verbrigge, Jottful's CEO, two-time entrepreneur, former business school professor, and the one with the marketing experience.
And I'm Natalie Bruno, Dawn's partner in crime, certified people person, and the one who speaks with small business owners every day about their website and marketing challenges.
We're here to have practical and fun conversations with people who know a thing or two or three about how to get more customers for your business. So, Lindsay, I love your story. You started Bump Club and Beyond, and you just really scaled it, and you've been enormously successful, and I'm so excited for you. And I'm just really interested in hearing a bit about your founding story. Kind of where did you start and where is your business now?
Of course. So thank you so much for having me. First and foremost, it's great to be here. I love sharing my knowledge and I love sharing my stories and really anything that I can answer or help others. I very much want to continue to do that. So my company is Bump Club and Beyond. That is the company that I founded. And Bump Club and Beyond, just for those of you who don't know what it is a large community, both online and off, that connects parents and parents-to-be with the best products, resources, information, and each other. And like many entrepreneurs, I started Bump Club and Beyond and had the idea for Bump Club and Beyond out of my own necessity, which I was pregnant. And when I was initially pregnant and not like publicly pregnant, like the first trimester, I didn't have anyone who in my life was pregnant at the same time. And I knew that I was going to want support. I knew I was going to want future mom friends. And I knew that I wasn't going to want to wait until this baby was born. And so I said to my husband, like, I have to find some kind of pregnant community. And there really just wasn't anything in Chicago. That's where I live. And so I had the idea to start hosting events, both social and educational events for expectant parents. And you have to remember, this was during a time that there were no business pages on Facebook. Like, that was not a thing. This was before Instagram. This was before Snapchat. I mean, I very much grew up and grew my business alongside social media. And
when did you start? Just
2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I have a 10-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. So this was when I was pregnant with my 10-year-old. And so I started hosting events. I was working in corporate America at the same time in magazine publishing, and I started hosting events. We did a prenatal workout with a local like boutique fitness studio. And then we hosted a shopping night with a maternity store on Michigan Avenue here in Chicago. And it was just really word of mouth that got these expectant moms there. And the funny thing was, I knew so many of them. I just didn't know that these people were pregnant at the time. Again, social media was very different, right? And so we had 50 people come to each of our first events, and people started saying, what's next? What's next? And
so by the way, at this point, Lindsay, it's just a side gig for you, right? You're working full time and you're doing this on the side. Yep.
Yes. And people, I think everyone paid $5 or $10 to come. You know, we got some food. My background is in integrated marketing communication. So I had reached out to a few brands and they supplied stuff for goodie bags, and we were giving people some great gift bags, which that ended up being a huge focus of our business later on. And then after these initial events, people were like, what's next? So we started hosting educational events. I was pregnant and I really, it was what I needed. Breastfeeding, sleep, how to find childcare. And we started hosting these dinners once a month. And very much, and I'm going to get into how this happened after I tell my founding story, but word of mouth spread. And we started filling up these events. And from there, I had people reaching out to us just from word of mouth across the country that they wanted to bring Bump Club and Beyond to their communities. And so we ended up launching next in Austin and in Minneapolis. And the reason why this is key is Minneapolis played a huge role in our trajectory and our growth, because we ended up having someone later on, it was about 2012, that contacted us from Target. And so as we were hosting events all across the country, I had my baby. And then I decided not to go back to work in corporate America. I really wanted to give this a go. And the goal was to pay for childcare for the first year. And
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it
very
was
precise. Yeah.
Very precise and very scary. You know, I mean, this was,
sure.
I don't want to like sugarcoat this and be like, oh, I just like quit my job. Like, this was a very big decision. I had a very high powered executive job, and this was a big decision. I also really liked my job. I wasn't leaving it because I didn't like it. I was leaving it because I very much believed in what I was doing. And I very much wanted to be able to be around for my daughter once she was born. And I didn't want to, ironically at the time, I didn't want to be on a plane all the time. And later on, I ended up traveling a ton with Bump Club, but it was on my terms. And that was a very big difference. So I ended up not going back to work in corporate America. And we took this leap of faith. And I really, you know, I hustled. I pounded the pavement, and I started getting paid sponsors, and we started expanding and hosting events for moms, not just expectant moms. And then we started doing a lot more content, especially as social media fueled that avenue of our business. My background is in ad sales. And so we started, you know, hosting paid programming from various advertisers on our website and on our social media channels. And then we got this call from Target a few years later, and we ended up starting a partnership with Target that is still going on today. It's 8 years in the making, and it's one of our largest partnerships, and it really put us on the map nationally. So we ended up, you know, having this partnership, and we were doing events across the country in their stores. Nordstrom approached us, and we did the same thing for them. And then we started working with a bunch of other, like, we've worked with every brand in the baby space, but a lot of brands started hiring us, not just to, you know, create a program for them, but to create a program and then bring our audience.
Yep.
And in 2018, I was approached by 3 different entities for the acquisition of my company. And
by the way, Lindsay, they approached you on LinkedIn, right? And you didn't even necessarily notice it right away.
Yes, I was going to say that, because one of my biggest lessons that I love to share is please pay attention to your LinkedIn messaging. I know there's a lot of garbage in there, but at the same time, it was very odd timing wise. I mean, these 3 entities all approached me in the same summer and in the same manner. They all reached out to me on LinkedIn. Awesome. And one of them I weeded out right away. One of them ended up, it was not really it just wasn't what I wanted. They wanted me and not my brand. And I didn't want to abandon my brand that I worked so hard for. And the one that ended up acquiring me, that we ended up closing the deal with, they wanted Bump Club, they wanted me, and they wanted my team. And really and truly, my goal with this was to get it to a point, take it as far as I could, and then hopefully get acquired, which we did. And allow that through that acquisition to really grow and scale and become more of a household name. So in 2019, we closed that deal, and we became part of Advantage Marketing Solutions. So that's who owns Bump Club now. And I remained on for about 2.5 years. And just this summer, I made the announcement that I am going to be moving on. I'm going to be passing the torch to the rest of my team, many who are young moms. And I'm going to be embarking on something new, and we can get to that later, or not, or whatever you want to talk about. But that's my founding story.
Yeah, I think your story is so inspirational. And I can imagine that a lot of the business owners listening today are thinking, yes, this is the path I want to take, right? And I love how you started with small in-person events, and then you expanded to other cities, and then you really grew through partnerships, and then ultimately through the acquisition. Can you talk a little bit about those earliest days? What is it that you did? How did you get people, for example, to those first in-person events?
Of course. And you have to remember, I'm going to go back to the fact that there was no like Facebook ads like that. I mean,
Right.
yes, that was what we did later on. Right. But like in the beginning, and I know I've shared this with you. I
Yep.
think one of the biggest things that the biggest mistakes that founders make is they don't look into their own networks. And
Yep.
the number one thing I tell business owners and founders always is when you launch a new business and you're all set and ready to go, your website's done, you have a call to action, you need to send an email to every single person you know. Like you literally open up that inbox of yours, you hit compose and you hit select all, because you never know who is in that address book of yours, even if it's someone you haven't talked to in years and years and years that might benefit from your business, that might know someone who could benefit from your business, or who might come out of the woodworks and become one of your biggest champions. And it happens. I mean, I get emails all the time and reconnect with people through that. That's your low hanging fruit. That's your network. So that was the initial thing that I did, was I sent an email to everyone I knew, and it's actually really, really sweet. I have some of my closest friends remind me every year on like my Bump Club anniversary. They'll send me that email. Like I have friends who have saved that email, and I have that email too. But it's really neat to look back 11 years ago and see how far we've come from that initial first email of, wow, I'm quitting my job and taking this leap of faith, essentially. So that's the first thing that I did, and that I always tell entrepreneurs to do. The second thing is to post it on
let's stop there for a second and acknowledge the fact that it's a real risk to do that. It takes a lot of confidence to say that I've left my job, I'm starting this new thing, and I'm going to tell everybody in my network about it. Because I think a lot of people are just inclined to be quiet about it until you get a little bit of success, and then talk about what you're doing. But to do that from the outset, I think takes a lot of courage, and kudos to you for doing it. And I agree, it's excellent advice, and it's not only great for getting customers, but to your point, it's great for getting advocates who can refer you to other people. It could even be great for getting investors.
Yes, 1,000%. And people pass on your message. And I think even so now, and I'm about to launch my new business and my new website, and I will be doing the exact same thing. And my call to action is going to be to follow me on Instagram. And that's, if there's nothing else that the people in my address book can do to support me right now, follow me on Instagram, because that is the number one, my number one priority at the moment. And I might not be a business for everyone to use when I'm relaunching, but I want people to know what I'm up to and be able to share it, to your point. And I think, if you are a business owner and you are taking a risk and founding a business, you have to find it within you deep down, even if you're nervous and whatnot, to share it, because that is like the number one way that you're going to get yourself out there without spending a penny. Which that's important. And on that note, I would also make sure that you post it everywhere on all your social media, on your LinkedIn, especially. At the time when I launched Bump Club, I only had a personal Facebook page. I don't even know if I had LinkedIn at the time, to be honest. I don't even remember. But I do know that I posted it on my personal Facebook, and it wasn't until a year or two later that we had a business Facebook for Bump Club. It took some time. The other thing that I think is really important is, I think always, but especially in the beginning, is to make sure that you're talking to and engaging with and asking your customers for feedback.
Yes.
After every single event that I hosted for Bump Club, whether it was a paid event that someone was like buying a ticket and coming to, like a dinner or a free workout, we always sent a survey. And I wanted to know, what did you need? What did these people need as an expectant parent? What did they want me to do going down into the future? What kinds of events did they want to see me hosting? How was the chicken at the dinner? I mean, like, I literally, I wanted to know everything. We asked about the check-in process. We asked about the registration process, and all of those things help you to grow as a business owner. And you have to have thick skin. People are going to be jerks. They will be. And, and for me, I was talking to pregnant people, and I was pregnant myself, and there were a lot of food aversions and a lot of people who were like, the chicken was disgusting. Okay. So you know what? Like, I'm sorry that happened and you were averse to chicken, but we ended up making a change and we ended up doing something different because of that. And so that all is such valuable feedback, to make sure that you're getting that customer feedback. And then on that note, we also offered incentives for referrals. And at the time, there was no like fancy automated referral systems like you can, use now through technology. It was very much like in the sign up box, like, did someone refer you? And we had to manually look and then, give them a discount code, but we did.
Yep.
And it was like me and an intern at the time. But for me at that point of my business, word of mouth marketing really fueled the growth of Bump Club. And especially like when you look at this audience uniquely, expectant parents and parents very much rely on word of mouth. And so it was so important to me that every time someone was engaging with me or with Bump Club and beyond, they were having a positive, powerful experience that helped them through their pregnancy and parenthood, because all I wanted was for people to continue to send that message and tell their other pregnant friends to come along.
The feedback piece is such an interesting point and something I was actually just addressing this morning with a customer. And what I discovered is there are some customers who are going to be very proactive about letting you know how they feel about the chicken, right? But there are other customers who you kind of have to pry a little bit more. And if you pry a little bit and you listen and you demonstrate that you're listening, they'll give you more information and they'll give you more feedback. And the more that feedback is super, super valuable, because that's coming from the people who aren't necessarily giving you information all the time, right? And they tend to have this, they tend to know maybe what you've done that isn't great, but they hide it a little bit. And you want to get that because that's how you really, really improve.
Yes. And on that note, so I had a group of core customers in the beginning that were very helpful in providing feedback. Those women ended up becoming Bump Club brand ambassadors. And we ended up having, like, as Bump Club grew, I was only one person. And at the time, I didn't have huge, funding behind me. And this was before a lot of our big corporate sponsors, but we were running events, and I am one person and I had a baby at home, and I could not be at everything. Right. So like I ended up having this brand ambassador program that was wildly successful. And I had a group of like 15 women at one point who, one, ended up becoming very good friends of mine. And, they were my network of, we all had babies around the same age. And two, I was able to give them an opportunity to do something for themselves. They didn't want necessarily full-time careers, but they wanted an excuse to get out of the house and not just like go to dinner, but like to actually do something and make an impact. And so these women who were my initial like champions, and, they gave me feedback, honest to goodness feedback, ended up becoming people who worked with me and helped to propel the brand to where it is today. And I'll forever be grateful for that.
Yeah. And you really worked with brand ambassadors to allow you to launch in other cities, right? It gave you some scale.
Yes. So we had brand ambassadors. So that kind of ended up coming later. So initially we launched in Austin, Texas, and in Minneapolis. That was kind of just one woman moved to Austin from Chicago and wanted to take Bump Club with her. And then I had a high school friend who ended up partnering up with her down there. And then I had someone randomly reach out to me from Minneapolis. Crazy enough, she ended up being my employee until just this past May. She and her four daughters were in town this weekend. They were at my house. She's a lifelong friend, and she really was with Bump Club through everything. And she became, our business development director. And she did all of our sales on a national level. And she really she had heard about it from friends in Chicago, and she approached me and she flew down here and we had a meeting, and then she stayed for an event, and that's kind of how it got started. And she was the one who brought the Target partnership into Bump Club and beyond. She was definitely, one of my most valuable employees that I had over the course of the last 11 years. And then we had people other places who had reached out, and I will say, and this, this was kind of one of our I guess failures or like things that I would have done differently, was we did launch in a few cities without doing the research that we should have done. And we had this like, if they build it, they will come mentality, and people didn't know what Bump Club was. And like LA and San Francisco are two examples of that. And those launches were not successful. We had small events. It took a lot to gain traction. In LA specifically, there were a lot of other like mom groups, and we had a lot of competition there. And we ended up pulling back, and we didn't go back into those cities until we were working with Nordstrom and working with Target. And we had the backing of this large brand. And like, I mean, obviously when you see a brand working with one of those brands, they definitely have a little more clout.
They're legit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and when we finally did, like, I remember with Nordstrom, we did 5 or 6 events in like the LA area over the course of like 18 months. We did them across the country, but specifically to Orange County and LA.
Yep.
And when we did that with Nordstrom, we had 400 or 500 people come to each of these events. I mean, they were huge.
Wow.
And people were paying to come. So that really helped us to then kind of course correct in those cities and in other cities across the country.
And so when you initially launched in LA and San Francisco, did you not seed it with those brand ambassadors like you did in Austin, Minneapolis? Do you think that was the thing that, was really a miss?
We had people in each city that approached us, and we allowed them to kind of follow the plan that we did in Austin and in Minneapolis. But I think first of all, I think LA logistics were a really big issue. Sure. Actually, in both cities, I think their logistics were a big issue. Like you had the traffic situation, you had people in San Francisco coming over the bridge and like not wanting to come to a dinner downtown when they lived in Mill Valley. Like there were a lot of logistics with both of those cities, and people wanted to stay closer to home. And you can't be everything to everyone, and that's just kind of a grander lesson that I learned over the course of time.
Yes.
And I think, it was really not until we were hosting like larger events in these cities that had more brands involved and influencers attending that really people were like, oh, this is worth the drive for me. Whereas here in Chicago, people really just wanted community. People that live downtown, it's not a big deal to hop on the L and go to a dinner. And it was a different kind of mentality for why people were coming to Bump Club versus in those cities. And it really taught us a lot being in those cities. And it wasn't the fault of the women who were running it. I think like we were all kind of learning as we were going along.
Sure.
But just the moms in the communities were just very different in those markets.
Different cultures.
So totally different cultures. And that helped me to kind of look at the country big picture and decide what to do and where when we move forward. Eventually, we ended up having a brand ambassador program. And that was probably the last 2 years and basically up into the pandemic. The last 2 years, but prior to my acquisition up into the pandemic, we had a brand ambassador program. And it was a program, I think by the time the pandemic started, we were in about 12 cities, and it was paid. It was like an hourly position. And these women had to come up with events, run events, get people to their events. They were paid hourly, like I said, and then they also got a bunch of perks from various companies that we worked with. And these women just really wanted to own something. Like that's kind of why we created this program. They didn't want a full-time corporate job, but they wanted to be a part of something. They wanted to have like a purpose outside their home, and they wanted to kind of make a career out of being a mom.
Build community.
And build community. And I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to give that to so many amazing women. Because when you start a family, you go through a lot of changes, and there are still, there are people who want to continue working. There are people who don't. And there are people who kind of want something in between. This was before the pandemic. It was before it was like normal to work at home, right? Things are a little bit different now. But we had amazing, amazing women work for us all across the country. And it really helped us to grow and scale. And we had big brands who were, we had a workout in 12 cities once a month, and Seventh Generation sponsored that workout across the country and, got millions of media impressions from it. It was amazing.
Awesome. So when you first started, you really reached out to your own network. You contacted everybody that you knew through email. You also reached out to your social media network. But something you did that's really smart is you also looked for audiences that other people had that were relevant to you. How did you find those audiences? How did you choose them? And then how did you reach out to them? How were you able to get access to other people's audiences?
So initially, my first 2 events, the first one was a prenatal workout. And so it was actually a studio that I was going to, and I knew they offered prenatal in addition to regular workouts. And I knew the owner, and I reached out to her and I said, I'm starting this company. And I knew it wasn't just about the event. Like I knew that this was like a long-term play here that I was reaching out to her for, because she had thousands of women coming through her studio in downtown Chicago every single month. And many of them were in the demographic of having babies. So if they themselves were not having babies, I'm sure they had friends who did. Yep. And because she was offering prenatal, like my kind of sale to, pitch to her was, I'm starting this company for expectant moms, take a chance. Let's partner together.
Yeah.
You can take advantage of my audience and I can take advantage of yours. And it's really, finding kind of a common ground, not being selfish about it. And each entity has to be putting something in to get something out. Yeah. And we went on to host prenatal workouts there basically until I was bought. I mean, and she had a couple of other studios too, and in the suburbs, and we would just partner, and it was really a purely cross promotional play, and it helped for me to obviously get customers into our other events, and for her it helped get long-term customers that were looking for a prenatal workout. Yeah. And same thing with the maternity store for me. When someone is first pregnant, right, they're not necessarily telling people that they're pregnant.
Right.
And one of the first things that they do after they tell is they usually have to go buy a pair of pants, usually a pair of jeans. I mean, that's really kind of like the number one thing that a pregnant person buys. It's a little different now because a lot of the boutique maternity stores sadly don't exist anymore. But at the time there were a bunch in Chicago. And for me, I knew if I partnered with the maternity stores, I would essentially drive people into these businesses, and they would essentially keep my cards out and say, you need to go to Bump Club to learn about breastfeeding or sleep or labor and delivery or whatever it was. And that was kind of how we chose those partners. And I will tell you, every single maternity boutique in the city of Chicago partnered with us. That's and awesome. We would host these events, and the owners would tell me, oh my God, the night we have Bump Club, we do thousands and thousands of dollars of sales.
So you really hit on something really critical, which is true of the partnerships that you're describing, which are really marketing partnerships, but partnerships generally, which is that both parties need to have some skin in the game, and both parties need to see benefit from it. And you were really careful in establishing these partnerships to make sure that that was built in. And that's the only way that you are really, really going to get results from the partnership. Otherwise, these partnerships very often fizzle very quickly.
1,000%. Yes. And we had many people, as we got bigger, we had so many people that would ask us for partnerships. And when we would kind of lay out what the give take was, if they didn't really want to comply, or if we felt that it was a self-serving partnership on their end, we said no, even if it felt like it was a good partnership or because it was a good name or whatever it might be. But it can't be a one-sided partnership. A partnership has to benefit both entities. And later on, when we were hosted, we hosted this large, it wasn't an expo, but it was like a boutique expo, I guess, but it was a few hundred people, not thousands. And it was an event that we did in 15 cities across the country every year. I went to all of them. And we started partnering with larger media companies. So Babylist, for example, was one of our big partners. And it was a total cross promotional partnership, but they would market our events and we would market their app and their services at the events and urge people to sign up for Babylist. And that it helped us. It helped us that we had their name in terms of sponsors. It helped us that they shared with their audience and that was kind of, we always sat down as a team and would brainstorm okay, where are pregnant people going? And so that's what I would encourage any business owner to do is whoever your audience is, where are they going? What is their buying profile? Where are they shopping? What brands are they reading? What podcasts are they listening to? You want to hear all of these things. And those are the kind of entities you want to reach out to for partnership.
Absolutely. So one of the things that you did, we were talking earlier about this, Lindsay, is that you actively sought testimonials from happy customers. And by the way, I mean happy people in the Bump Club community, right, of pregnant women, but then also some of the, larger partners that you work with, the brands that you worked with, like Nordstrom and Target and so forth. You would seek these testimonials, and then you would use those testimonials to grow your business even more. Can you talk about how you got those testimonials and then how you use them to grow?
Yes. So from a consumer standpoint, when we're talking about the Bump Club and Beyond community and the B2C component of the business, We would ask people for testimonials a couple ways. Like one, if there was a survey about an event, we always said like, is there anything else you would share? And if there was a good testimonial before using it, I always would reach out and ask if we could share. Later on, we had like this program called Bump Club, or it was like called BCB VIP. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was like a membership-based program. And in order to encourage people to sign up for it, we reached out to the VIP community and asked, like, we would ask them, like, what are your favorite, parts of being a VIP? Why would you encourage? And we would ask them to like finish this like sentences and various forms, and then we would ask their permission to use it.
Oh, and you really queued them up. That's smart.
Yes, we would queue them up, and then we would use them like in graphics and infographics on social media as a way to encourage people to buy the membership. And it worked. I mean, it worked tremendously. We also, we used a referral system as well, but testimonials go a long way. And we had them on our website. Like when you went to become a BCB VIP, there was like a whole like thing of testimonials that you could like just keep kind of clicking along. And I just always found it really helpful when people laid out why they became a BCB VIP, why they were coming to Bum Club, what they were gaining from it. And it really became a big part of our community. We also ask for people, and I'm not sure if they're doing it anymore because I am not running the social media for Bum Club anymore. I'm consulting for them right now, but I'm not doing the social media like I used to. But I used to tee things up on our Instagram, and I would say, like, what's your favorite part of being in the Bum Club community? And those were also great testimonials.
Fantastic.
And sometimes we would say, like, comment below for your chance to win like a gift bag from one of our events. We always had a lot of product lying around, and we always, instead of like letting it go to waste and, or just like sitting there, we would use it for stuff like that. We also donated a ton of product to like Baby to Baby and Share a Spare and other agencies around the country that help moms in need. But we also used it, for our own, marketing purposes as well. And people really like to get free things.
That's a great way to get a bunch of testimonials quickly.
Yeah. Yes. And then from the B2B standpoint, we just as partners, we would always reach out to our partners, at the end of a program and say, are you willing to provide a testimonial? Or, sometimes, to be honest, I think oftentimes people would send really nice emails about the program or about something we did for them. And we would just turn around and say, are you okay with us using that? And I think it's important, like on your website, to have testimonials from clients. And, whether it's a customer, like a B2C, or a vendor, like a B2B, like I think both things are incredibly important. When I launched my new website in a month or so, right on the homepage is a testimonial from someone who I've worked with and who I've featured their product on TV for years. And she said something very nice to me in an email, and I asked her if I could use it, and she said yes. And I think that that's just key. Like, just ask.
Yep. Yeah.
And if you have a good relationship with a vendor or a client or whoever you're calling them or whatever they are, if you have a good relationship, they would be more than happy to do that. I can guarantee that.
Yep. We also at Jottful, we store our testimonials in a spreadsheet, and then we'll, write down who they're from, of course, but we'll also categorize them by what kind of testimonial it is. Like this is a testimonial that's all about why they chose to work with Jottful, get a website from Jottful. This is a testimonial about how they think we're different from building their own website, right? Like we can categorize them. And then when we're looking for something for marketing purposes in a particular category, we can go through and find all the testimonials that we have. And that's been super, super helpful. Just keeping all of it in the same spreadsheet.
I think also now it's, you can use them in so many different ways on social media, whether you're making like a typography for like an Instagram feed or turning something into a reel, or, we have a lot of like Bum Club and Beyond has a lot of original photography from our events. And so we would create videos that we would put the testimonials through. So, I mean, there were a lot of different ways that we used it.
Yeah. All right. This has been fantastic, Lindsay. I just have one last question for you, which is, if you were to do it all again, what's one thing you would do differently, or what's one thing you would recommend to the business owners listening today?
So, and I'm not shy about saying this, I say this often. I wish initially that I had either started with a partner or started with it could have been an employee. It didn't have to necessarily be a partner that was finance and operation minded. So
interesting.
Like I am marketing, sales, creative, like that. And I know that that's where I excel. Strategic, I am very good at like laying out a social strategy and laying out a marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I am not good at QuickBooks. I'm just not like, and I'm not good at finance. So, I mean, I took the class in my master's program and I did fine in it, but like, I'm not good at that. And it really was when I decided to invest in a CFO, or I had an operations person at one point, but it was really when I decided to invest in having someone do my finances and my bookkeeping that my company started to grow and really take off. And, that was something that I was not great at. And it's very important to recognize what is it that you can have someone else do. And I think it's also, you can get creative, I mean, as a startup, like, you can maybe give a little equity if that's something you're interested in. You don't have to give them 50%, but if you can't pay someone like, a full salary, you be creative. I'm doing a project with someone right now and I'm on the receiving end and I believe in what they're doing. And so I've accepted equity for it. But I think that it's really important to recognize kind of what you're strong at and what can you outsource and what can you who do you need to help? Because that's how you're going to grow. If you're bogged down trying to figure out QuickBooks, it's taking away from a lot of the things that are really important with your business.
And it sits on your list and it just makes you feel bad every time you see it and you haven't done it yet. I know the feeling. I was sharing that at Jottful, we've actually hired a fractional CFO. So he's not a full-time CFO for us. He works for multiple companies and it's perfect because we only need sort of a sliver of time. But I agree. It's not the right thing for us to be doing.
The last person that I had in that position was also a fractional CFO. She was hourly. She was so fair with her rates. And she actually was the one who helped me to prepare my finances to sell my business. And I wished that I had found her earlier. I mean, I had other people in that position, but she was amazing. And I think there are so many people now who do this and who have multiple clients, and it's definitely worth investing in, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this episode of Marketing Made Easy, please subscribe to Jottful's YouTube channel. That's JOTTFUL. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll meet you on the next one.